Hello, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scaryish podcast.
Woo!
I'm Robin Grace, this is Adam Diaz.
Hello.
And today, we are here with a couple topics that, well, you have a couple topics on your own, right?
I do.
And I have a singular topic on my own, so we have a few topics.
Indeed we do.
To chat about, and we're really excited to tell you folks about it.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to start, if I'm not mistaken.
Cool. You go, girl.
That'll be a fun time. So this week, I really wanted to cover something haunted. I've been going through like extraterrestrial stuff, and I found some other things since the extraterrestrial October ended.
Yeah.
But I really want to get back to the haunted roots of the show. And we have this Google Doc that we keep topic suggestions that our wonderful listeners and viewers have sent in, along with things that we sort of stumble across while we're doing our research. We think, oh, that doesn't really fit right now, but that'll be a good topic.
Yeah.
We've had 2 topics on that document for some time, like years, literally like 1 or 2 years. And it's because they're rather small and they're about hauntings that are fairly recent. I check back in on them from time to time to see if there's been any update on these things that would sort of make it a full topic, but there has not been an update on either of these. And I decided this week to say fudge it, and I'm just going to combine these 2 into one. And because of that, the name is going to be a little weird. But hey, I think we're just going to go with something like quick hauntings. So here are some quick hauntings. And if I think of something better in the next couple hours, then I'll probably name my topic that.
I'm trying to think of something really clever, like, I don't know, like a quick hit or something.
I knew you were going to say something with quick hit, but it's like I put quick hit haunting, and I don't know. We'll figure something out in post. But let's just jump into them, because these are actually pretty fun. And by pretty fun, I mean kind of scary. So the first haunting I want to start out with took place way, way back in 2014. And I'm not going to do the recap that I normally do of the year, because 2014 was only 6 years ago. Also, holy shit, 2014 was 6 years ago. It just makes me feel old saying that out loud. I remember some stuff from 2014. Like, I remember Dragon Age got Game of the Year. I tested my knowledge to see if I was right on that, and I was. That Sony hack I talked about in the last episode, the Cyber Wars, happened in 2014. Robin Williams passed away in 2014, which was super sad. I was in a Burger King, and I was eating a meal while I was working at GameStop. I had a 30-minute break. I walked to a Burger King, sat in there, thought about how much I hated my life at that moment, and then on the news came across Robin Williams had killed himself. I was like, man, this day fucking sucks. Like, that was...
Now we're in 2020.
That was awful. What else? The Malaysia Airlines thing happened with both of their aircrafts, one getting shot down, one disappearing. That was 2014. 2014 was kind of a fucked up year, without a doubt. So, what else happened in 2014? I was going to go into my topic, and I'm like, find something good. Frozen came out in 2014.
Really?
Yeah, so all that other stuff, let it go.
Ha 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 ha. I see what you did there.
It's like that meme where the kid has his eyes closed and his front teeth are. I was like, oh. That's how I feel when you mock me with your laughter. So, also, something spooky took place down in Española, New Mexico. And while I was preparing to write about this particular story, it occurred to me that these hauntings, the 2 I'm going to cover tonight, do have a common theme in them. And you might figure it out before I get to the next one or at the beginning of the next one, but maybe I'll figure out a topic name based off of that. So, this particular story takes place at the address 1316 Calle Aliante in Española, New Mexico, like I had mentioned. And for those would-be ghost hunters out there that have written down this address already and are thinking about visiting this haunted location, please listen to this next part before trespassing at night with your spirit boxes and your affliction t-shirts.
Oh my god, okay.
The name of this building is the Española Police Department. That's right, spooky friends, we're talking about a haunted police department. And no, it is not an old abandoned building. It's very much active and in use. It's not really an old building either, like you would imagine with a haunted building. It was actually constructed in 2006. So at this moment right now, it's 14 years old. When this took place, it was only 8 years old. And in September of 2014, one officer at the police department was watching the security cameras for intruders, sort of like, you know, a security guard would do, except it's an actual police officer on duty watching their security cameras, when suddenly he noticed something on the camera overlooking their secured entryway. A secured entryway is basically like the employee parking lot at a police station. So it's surrounded by the really tall fence with the wire and everything. It has a gate that needs to be like shifted to the right to allow cars in, has a little station that you have to check in with, that you can actually, as a person, walk in and out of if you don't want to like open the big gate for the cars. So just to paint a picture, imagine an employee parking lot that's just super secure. And that is where this stationary camera is focused on when this gentleman sees something pretty odd. What he sees is a white blur that seems to be moving across the screen from what appears to be originating at the door to the police department. So it's almost like someone has exited the police department, but rather than opening the door, whatever this white blur is sort of just emerges from within the door and then is outside the door suddenly. So it's like, if you're thinking this is a ghost, obviously take all this with a grain of salt, it's like a ghost passes through the door and then begins walking through this parking lot. Like plenty of apparitions that are caught on camera, this thing was translucent. You know, like light passes through it, you can kind of see the image behind it, but you can also see what appears to be an object moving around. Now, having watched the video that this story is about, because you can find this online, I can say initially what I thought it was an orb. Just a large orb that for some reason scaled on this camera in a weird way, or a lens flare of some sort. And if people only knew that what they thought were ghosts on their cameras were actually overused effects by J.J. Abrams, they would know where to put their blame. Damn you, J.J. Abrams. Stop lens flaring everything. Anyways, as the object begins to move across the screen, as I watched this as well, it became apparent that it was not a lens flare or an orb. The officer on duty watching the security camera states, and this is what I saw as well, he states, quote, "At first I thought it was a podia, a fly or moth. Then I saw the legs, and it was a human, but not a real human, no, a ghost." So as the object moves across the screen, about halfway across, you see what sincerely appears to be a set of moving legs on the lower portion of this object. It sincerely looks like it's a human being suddenly walking, and it's kind of super creepy because it's not taking like a straight path that you would normally associate with an orb or a lens flare.
Yeah.
It's taking kind of a serpentine path that would take it the most convenient route to exit the parking lot.
Wow.
Like it's using the doors. Now, multiple officers at the police station observed this video after what I'm sure was a moment where the first officer had a little mini meltdown and possibly shit his pants. And they felt strongly enough about the footage that they observed to contact the local press, release the footage, and do interviews regarding said footage where they stated that they personally 100% believe this to be a ghost. Now, that said, here's some stuff I've found out about the police station. According to no records I can find, no public records, it doesn't seem to be built on any sort of burial ground or any previous reservation that might have had some sort of sacrificial or even sacred ground. It just seems to be on a normal plot that previously remained empty for quite a long time. The second thing that I found is that no inmates or employees have ever died there. I looked up as many records as I possibly could in the area because it is, very specific. It's a very specific address.
All right.
Couldn't find anything. And then I found a news report from the local area where they did state that no one had died there as of 2014. So it didn't make sense if there was some sort of entity haunting the station. Like usually you look like, oh, like Old Man Jones died here. That's got to be his ghost. Nothing like that. So no one really had some sort of legend to attach to it. The third thing I found out while doing research on this is that apparently Google allows you to leave reviews on just about any location that isn't residential because the Espanola Police Department has 11 reviews.
What?
And a 2.3 rating.
Wow.
Which is not good. Lots of 1 stars. Officers that were
1
interviewed.
star. I was arrested.
One of them, I think there's a 5-star that says, it's good. And I was just like, that must be a drunk guy who got locked up in the drunk tank who just really liked the cell he got to sleep in. I was like, yeah, I've been in worse. So a lot of the
meals, nice snackies.
A lot of the 1 stars were very specific. And if you want to read those, go for it. I'm just going to keep moving on though. Officers that were interviewed on this but chose to remain anonymous, that didn't want to come out and have their face on camera, stated that the building has a reputation for just feeling off. Multiple officers stated that they felt like they were being watched in the station when they're alone, which, to be fair, makes sense because there are cameras in the station and that just sort of happens. Other officers stated on the record that they feel as if someone is standing right behind them as they fill out their paperwork or do desk work, especially at night.
That's creepy.
And when they turn around to see who it is that's looming over them, there is no one there.
filling out paperwork in a police station at night, though, period, is terrifying.
Especially if you're filling out like an incident report of something that happened and that particular incident was intense, you know?
Yeah.
You sort of relive that moment. You have that anxiety. But I imagine these are a lot of seasoned officers and they just got in here in 2006. And they're like, this place is just fucking creepy. And I think that's what it really came down to is they have this thing on camera. They wanted people to know like this place is creepy. We all feel creeped out by it. Here's some security footage. We just want to put it out there because there's really no other reason, it seems like, for them to do this and to just sort of take the lead and be like, yeah, there's like some creepy shit in the police station. Unless they thought it would like thwart crime. Like, you don't want to come here. The haunted police station. Like, we'll lock your ass up and you'll get haunted by a ghost. But I don't know. I can't speculate. Each arrest comes with a ghost. What's that?
Each arrest comes with a ghost.
I don't think they advertise arrests like they come with fries, but I guess that's what they're trying to do here. Maybe. I don't know.
Don't get arrested if you don't want one.
Honestly, the video, if you go and check this out, it looks like a bright shadow, which I know is an oxymoron. It's kind of weird to say, but it looks like a shadow because you can kind of see through it, but it's lighter on the camera rather than being dark. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's a dark time. I think it's like midnight to 2 a.m., somewhere around there, and it's just very odd. There will be a picture of this on our Instagram/Facebook. Here's the thing about that. I circled the spot where you can kind of see the apparition, and it's very hard to make it out because it's a security camera. It's not the best quality. Now, that said, if you go and check out the video of this online and you can actually see this thing move, then you understand like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I 100% see where this thing is at. I can see the legs. I can see the movement, and it looks pretty legit. But let's analyze some stuff.
Let's analyze this.
You've never seen that movie.
I have never seen that movie.
It's a pretty good movie. I'll be honest.
It's the one with Jack Nicholson? No. That's anger management or something.
Correct. That's not that good of a movie.
Okay.
It's the one with Robert De Niro and Billy Crystal.
Okay. I know what you're talking about.
And Lisa Kudrow.
Yeah.
So I figured you'd know it because she's one of the friends from Friends.
I didn't really follow her career. Sorry.
No one did. It's okay.
Oh, no.
Hey, she's doing fine. Okay. Lisa Kudrow is going to be okay. The video itself lasts for 7 to 10 seconds at most. And it honestly kind of looks like the ghost of a person. I'm not 100% sure that I'd say it is a ghost. So I was not able to confirm how the police department here maintains their security footage, which is a very important thing. If it's digital, then I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, this is total ghost. I'm going to go ahead and confirm it.
But
caught on camera, afterlife exists, repent now, sinners. Or, like, send your brains out if you don't mind hell, but afterlife 100% confirmed.
But if it's videotape, then it could be ghost, like, layers onto, like, re-recording over videotape, so it's like a ghost of something that was recorded before on top of the tape.
Correct. If the department uses, like, VHS technology, which for some of our younger listeners, they may not be familiar with it, like, if you have essentially a Blu-ray, but imagine 2 Blu-rays next to each other, then shrink them down, and then make them thick.
Just say
and
like
then
a cassette
spool them
tape?
with tape, and then secure them with like hard plastic.
It's just a bigger cassette tape.
If they don't know VHS, they probably don't know cassette tape.
Oh my god. Have you seen the videos where people have tried to shove their iPhones into the cassette tape pocket?
No, it's just breaks my heart to hear that.
And they're like, why does it keep scratching my iPhone?
Have you seen people tweet about the fact that they got out a 3.5 floppy disk and they're like, oh, that's cool. You 3D printed the save icon.
Oh
it's
my
like,
god.
Fuck you, kid. Fuck you.
I used to like decorate the heck out of my floppy disk, man.
That's funny. I forgot that you could decorate them. And if you decorate the wrong thing, then they just won't work anymore.
Oh my god.
So, that said, like we're saying, if you have a VHS tape, which a lot of security cameras did for a very long time before hard drives were big enough and you could still have decent enough resolution where you could basically have it be recording all the time like a DVR, like a Nest camera, like that shit that we have now, wasn't available in 2006 when the station was built. Now that the station's 8 years old at this point in the story, if they never upgraded the security system and they kept reusing tapes, like Robin said, after you reuse a tape over and over and over, it starts to have wear and tear. There starts to become low quality parts of that particular tape, and residual images from a previous recording can bleed through to the new recording. So it absolutely can explain a lot of the videos that you see that are low quality, that looks like a person just walking through, like 2 images painted over the top of one another, especially when people are like, I swear to God, it's like 100% legit. Sometimes it's like, yeah, I believe you, it's legit. You accidentally created a really good fake. So you can literally get a blurred, ghosted image of a person walking across a frame. But most importantly, if you are reusing tapes and you're reusing them for the same camera, then if there is an image burn, but the camera is a static shot, the image burn completely overlays with the background, which means that the only thing that you'll see for the overlapping blur is a moving object like a person walking. So you could not realize the tape is such poor quality because it's like the fence is always there. It's the same angle for the building. Yep. But if you see like all of a sudden like an overlap of someone that just walked out of the building and then walked out of the gate.
Because it's focused on that same view constantly.
Correct.
So that's already burned into got it.
Exactly. So that's why something like this could have a pretty easy explanation. That said, I don't know what kind of system they have. I don't. It definitely seems like this is the case, because the video looks legit and it is pretty fucking creepy. But I think it's funny that the video happened and the police station were like, this place fucking sucks. Like, it's super creepy. We always feel like we're being watched. Stars. It's 2.3 stars. Okay. It's just not a good place to be. So I just thought this one was super interesting because the video is so compelling to a lot of people that don't really want to analyze it. But like I said, we don't really know what sort of security system they use. And I don't think they're really going to disclose that to the public. Who knows what sort of Ocean's 11 heist they might have if they were to do something like that. But now taking the flip side of the burned image thing, if you have a static image of a background, you should have additional ghost people walking by,
Yeah.
Or like a ghost dog that wandered into the parking lot. Or a ghost car coming into park.
Oh my God.
I was so excited to say that.
If it is, though, midnight or 2 a.m. or whatever, there really isn't that many people walking around that time.
But how do you know midnight on the live camera matches up with the previous recording? You know what I mean? Because the previous recording might not... It's like, just because you put in a tape and you hit record at midnight, and you're like, okay, brand new tape, and then it runs out at 8 a.m., like, who knows, like 6 months later, and then you rewind the tape and start it again at like 8:05, then all of a sudden your 8:05 a.m. recording won't match up with the initial recording that started at midnight. You see what I'm saying? Oh,
yeah, that's true.
Here's the other thing.
So maybe it could be later, and it's actually like 3 or 4 a.m.,
where someone was leaving their shift, Someone was just naturally going home in the daylight, which would make sense. Here's the thing that's super interesting, though. If this is a live feed, you would not see ghost images on the live feed. It's only on the tape. The live feed is showing you exactly what you see, and this guy saw it on the live feed.
Ooh.
That's why he was like, what the fuck was that? And they pop the tape out, they rewatch, it's like, that's what I saw.
Ghosts.
So when you toss out something where it's like, this explains what would happen with the VHS being reused, that's true. But when it comes to the actual camera, even if you don't have a tape recording, that camera's showing you a live feed and someone saw something.
So this is 2014. Technology is pretty advanced in 2014. I know in my experience, at least when I've worked at retail, we're able to just pop in a USB and download that data into the USB. We didn't have VHS. A lot of the jobs that I had was you plugged in a USB, you downloaded that clip onto the USB. So it was actually not, there's no VHS to ghost, it's actually what you see is what you get.
But at the same time, did this police station upgrade since 2006? Because 2006 definitely didn't have readily accessible technology like that. I mean, I'm sure it existed, but it was definitely much more expensive. 2006, it was my third year out of high school. So I can remember that there was not a ton of like badass technology yet. Like, I'm pretty sure the iPads you still had, or the iPods, you still had to like do the circle thing to go through your menus, like tick, 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 tick.
I was a...
Fuck you. I hate you so much. I'll never forget the first party I threw where someone came in and their iPod had an adapter where you could plug a speaker into it. He's like, everywhere I go, I have theme music from now on. And it's like the next generation fucking iPods all had a speaker built into it, so you could just play stuff. Well, then they
had the iPad, or the iPod Touch. Do you remember those?
Yeah, when the touches hit, it was just like, yeah, this is done deal. No one wants the old iPods. Those things are ugly fucking bricks now.
Man, the first iPhones. You remember the first iPhones? Oh, okay. Let's move on.
This one's definitely a weird one. It's not as easily dismissed as simple image bleeding as some might say, although it does seem a likely culprit. And it's certainly not as easily confirmed as ghosts are 100% real and there is life beyond death, as other folks would say. I think the truth usually lies somewhere in the middle, but I'm not sure how close it might lean towards ghosts. So I thought that one was really cool. So the next case we're going to get into takes place in 2016, 2 years later. I'm not doing a full-blown economy recap of 2016, just like I didn't do it for 2014. 2016 was 4 years ago. Here's what I remember about 2016, okay? The Cubs won the World Series. It's the most important thing to happen in my lifetime. Except for, meeting Robin, whatever. We moved into the house we're currently
Not graduating university?
No, not at all.
Oh my
Not
Lord.
at all. Like,
Okay.
that was like, I was happy to be done with it, and it makes me have less nightmares now. But it wasn't a huge milestone, because after I graduated, I was like, cool, I just graduated. Also, unemployment's at 20%, and I get to go work in retail for $11 an hour. So glad I have tens of thousands of dollars of debt for a piece of paper I'll never use. So no, university was not an accomplishment for me, and that was 2011 anyways. Okay, Cubs won the World Series. We moved into the house we're in. I got a Shiba Inu for my birthday that year,
You're
and it's the
welcome.
best gift I've ever gotten. And Overwatch was Game of the Year. I was wrong about that one. I thought it was something else. I can't even remember what I thought it was, but it's Overwatch for 2016. Also, something bizarre happened in August of 2016 in a town called Rutherglen, Scotland. As we all know, Rutherglen is a town that is just south of Glasgow, Scotland, because, who doesn't know that? A mother and her son, her teenage son, which I later found out as I was doing research, were living in a home on Stonelaw Road when suddenly and inexplicably, something bizarre started to happen. Strange noises could be heard throughout the building, as well as other terrifying activity like objects seeming to relocate themselves on their own. The activity started to increase, which is to say got worse and worse as time moved on. And when you watch horror movies, it's usually this steady but slow increase in activity across the course of days and even weeks until it like crescendos into like a bunch of activity all at once, That was not the case with the poltergeist of Stonelaw Road. So it only took around 48 hours, and by then the mother was so fearful of what was happening that she called the police for help. Now in a situation like this, there isn't a whole lot that can be done, but sometimes you just need to call someone that represents authority in hopes they can help or just make you feel safer. And maybe even just provide some sort of calming presence in the home that's definitely filled with panic and fear at that point, Officers get dispatched to this home. Now, in the case of a horror movie, again, the police would get there and the activity would stop, That seems to be how it happens. They look at the lady as if she were crazy, further adding to the tension of the situation or the feeling of isolation. And in fact, I think that sort of thing happens in quite a few instances of quote-unquote hauntings in real life, where people show up. None of the activity that's being described is currently taking place, so they are looked at as liars or frauds or hoaxers or however you want to say it. And even authorities or paranormal investigators arrive, and activity tends to be quiet most of the time. That is not what happened here. According to police sources that spoke with the media, the officers that arrived witnessed quite a few things upon arrival. When they entered, they immediately witnessed clothes strewn about the residence that seemed to just rise up and be flung across the rooms on their own, with no person responsible for picking them up. It's like there was an invisible person having a clothes fight. And the lights in the residence were flickering on and off or going out entirely, as if there were some massive electrical problems in the building. They were very quickly taken aback by the fact that the things they were witnessing obviously would shake most people, and they walked in on this mother and her son trying to figure out what the hell was happening. They walked into full-blown paranormal activity.
Wow.
It wasn't like they walked in, it's like, so what's going on? They walked in, they're like, what the fuck is happening? I've read multiple reports on this particular instance on what happened here. Most seem to quote or reference the same report from a publication known as the Daily Record. The Daily Record is a tabloid. So I went through a lot of effort to find other references or interviews or descriptions of the events. One site claims a more detailed account of the events that transpired from the officers in question once they entered the home. It appears in this particular account, and again, take this with a grain of salt, because I couldn't find something that was just like a clip of them speaking their own words. But in this particular account, the officers requested that the mother and her child exit the home into the front courtyard so they could investigate what was happening in the home more thoroughly without having to worry about the fact that these two very scared people were still in the home while this shit was taking place. The officers and the family, which included a pet chihuahua, stepped outside during the activity into the courtyard in front of their home. There will be pictures of the outside of the home on our Instagram/Facebook. Now, I'm not sure exactly when this took place, but everywhere describes this particular incident, this little piece of paranormal activity. The pet chihuahua was outside with these people discussing what was going on as the police were about to enter the home again. When they realized the chihuahua was no longer at their feet, it was suddenly on top of a hedge that surrounded their courtyard, which is made even weirder by the fact that the hedge is 7 feet tall.
Wow.
They just looked around, they're like, The fucking dog is on top of the hedge that's 7 feet high.
Chihuahuas are a tiny breed.
Tiny dogs. They cannot jump 7 feet. If they could play basketball, because there's no rule that dogs can't play basketball.
Do you think that dog could have crawled through the hedge to get up there?
I think they would have noticed, because it's supposed, according to these reports, the dog was at their ankles while they were talking. A few moments later, they're like, where's the dog? And it was on top of the fucking hedge. And they're like, what the hell just happened? So they freaked out and they got the dog down. And then the officers proceeded to go back into the home. The activity had not calmed down. And in fact, in addition to the lights flickering on and off and clothes still flying around the room, the lampshades, while they were outside, have been taken off and turned upside down on the lamps. And the oven doors, because apparently there was multiple ovens, were opening and closing on their own, basically being slammed by someone they couldn't see. This is just one pissed off poltergeist. It's like the poltergeist was sewing. It's like, hey, are these your clothes? Fuck your clothes. Is that your oven? Wham! Wham! Is that your chihuahua? Fuck your chihuahua.
No.
Which... it really makes it seem like this is an angry fucking ghost to throw a dog, you know? It makes the activity seem more demonic, because the only things I've ever seen in cinema where the creature or the ghost or whatever, the entity, attacks the dog, it's typically a demon.
It must have been fairly powerful if it were a spirit or demon, because it was just like, police are coming, I don't care, I'm still going.
I feel like there's a rule in the afterlife where you can't expose the afterlife to anything on film or to any official, unless it's the church, or else you're going to get in trouble. And this poltergeist was just breaking all the rules. And that is the part that makes this so difficult for the police officers in this case. They 100% felt like there was something wrong on a spiritual level, you know? But they're cops. There's no crime being committed. It just appears to be a pissed off spirit. So when it comes down to it, it's like, what the hell are they going to do for these people?
Police can't help you.
They really can't. They're
not trained for any of that
They
stuff.
were there and they're like, we think there's something wrong here. We think you have a poltergeist, probably a fucking demon, who knows? But at the same time, there's nothing they can do. Everyone knows when it comes to cops and the law, ghosts have diplomatic immunity, just like in Lethal Weapon 2, except there's no Danny Glover and he can't cock his neck and shoot a bullet between the eyes of the ghost and go, it's just been revoked. They're incorporeal. What? The bullet's going to pass through the ghost. It's going to hit the wall. Danny Glover's probably going to get in trouble for damaging the wall and head back to the station. And the captain's going to be like, the mayor's going to have my ass. And you can't have that. And it sucks.
I don't remember watching this.
You've never seen Lethal Weapon 2.
Probably
We've
not.
already gone over this.
Okay.
The police recommended that the woman and her son just basically find somewhere else to go and to take the chihuahua with them. And according to the police contact that spoke with the media, the police actually went a little bit further and reached out to the Catholic Church for assistance in what was happening, because they're like, this is not our area, but there is something very, very wrong here. Here is the part of the story that makes it very, very intriguing and frustrating to me post-haunting, okay? Post all of this going down. And again, these accounts came from the police and not the person who was in the home. The woman and her son left then and there. They're like, fuck this place. They gathered up as many personal effects as they were comfortable collecting in a house with all that activity, and they went to the parents' house of the woman who was the woman of the house, okay? So the media gets a hold of this story, and despite it being in a tabloid, the fact that the police were the people that were contacted and they corroborated the incident to multiple media outlets, it really brought some credence to the entire thing, and people picked up on it. It's very rare that a tabloid story, aside from someone famous that's done something wrong, you know, gets the sort of momentum behind it that this thing did. And folks from all around reached out to speak to the lady of the home about what had happened. And this includes more reputable media sources who eventually did reach out and contact the police department, as well as paranormal investigators who really, really wanted to go to this house to see what was going on. They offered their services for free. They spoke with media outlets about what they think it could possibly be. It had a lot of attention. Folks wanted to know what had happened. They had questions like, was there additional activity since the initial incident? Had the Catholic Church actually become involved? Were they helping? They wanted some sort of resolution, which is where I'm at too. The only thing that the lady of the house discussed after the incident with anyone was how much she did not want to discuss the incident with anyone.
I bet she just was like, I don't want this thing to follow me. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to leave it and let it die where it was.
She only spoke of the stress her and her son were under because of the incident. She said this, quote, It's placed enormous stress on the family. I've had people, teenagers, going past my home singing Ghostbusters.
Wow.
So they're like mocking her or just like having a good time with it. She went on to say, we don't want to be in the papers. We don't want people coming to our house. I'm not interested in talking to newspapers. You can imagine the stress we've been under, end quote. Couldn't find anything else from her. I think there's little bits and blurbs about her basically saying like, no comment, leave me the fuck alone, and that sort of thing. Aside from that, she has not talked about this incident. I have been following this story for literally years, waiting for a follow-up from anyone. This family sincerely did not want any sort of public attention on this incident. They just wanted help from the police. When it didn't come, they noped the fuck out. This was not a cash grab. These people didn't want any notoriety. And despite the fact that it's become a very popular story online that they could probably cash in with a fucking movie deal, you know, it's like they don't want anything to do with it. They've had famous paranormal investigators, people that say, they personally say they've investigated all the things that Ed and Lorraine Warren have also investigated, and they're willing to offer their services. It would take them 2 days to get rid of the spirits or identify whatever it is. And they cannot get a call back from these people because they're like, nope, don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Like, stay out of my life. We're staying away from it. You should too. She has not done any interviews since. No follow-up has been given. This incident that was witnessed by the police remains an isolated incident. It's not exactly a case is still open because they showed up. They couldn't do anything. They made a recommendation, and the citizen took the recommendation and left the home.
What happened to that place?
I don't know. I think at this point, it's probably back on the market or has been rented out. I couldn't find any details. And here's the thing about this. Aside from the parties involved and maybe some folks who knew them, no one really knew what happened after this with the place or with the people in particular. It certainly adds this level of fear when it winds up being a complete unknown on what the resolution was. Neighbors say that they've never heard any sort of ghostly activity, and they didn't hear anything about ghostly activity from them before they left. They haven't had anything happen before, during, or since this incident. The Catholic Church was contacted for assistance by the local police, but there's absolutely no official comment about that. The family just left. And this certainly feels like an incomplete story, but we say all the time, like, if something like this were to happen, I'd leave, you know?
Yeah.
Pick up and leave, say fuck that, and it certainly seems like that's exactly what they did. They didn't want to talk to anyone about it. And I want to say, for the record, I did find the name of this woman, her full name. I found the address of the house as well. I'm not sharing it because she sincerely didn't want any sort of attention, and it serves no purpose at this point. But I am so curious as to how this all shook out, because a documented instance like this just sort of begs for follow-up. You know, it's the morbid curiosity we sort of all have. I'm still going to keep an eye on this one to see if at any point there's an update on this case. But as of right now, 4 years after the incident, there really isn't anything. There's a lot of articles out there that it's like every 6 months they retell this story and they still quote the Daily Record or whatever it was called, the Daily Planet, where Clark Kent works. But there's not a lot of people that have any new material, except if you interview someone who has nothing to do with it that just wildly speculates on what it could have been, you know? So this one certainly feels like something that will, as it continues to take on a life of its own, eventually have more and more details added to it. And who knows, like, maybe the holographic podcast of the 3000s will reference this one as like the most super famous Glasgow incident of all time. But who the hell knows? I saw an article from like 2 months ago where it talked about like the most famous incidents surrounding Glasgow in the paranormal universe. This was like number 3. And it was something that happened over the course of 2 nights, and the family left.
Wow.
Just left. And they have all this shit written about it. And realistically, this incident is very microscopic because it happened, they showed up, and they left. But people are so not exactly obsessed, but curious as to what went down. So if I ever find out more, I will certainly let you folks know. But I kind of had to share this incident because it's been plaguing me for at least 2 years to get some additional information on it. So
nice.
Yeah, that's my stuff. So
good job.
Hope you enjoyed my nameless topic. So
quick snips.
Good stuff. So before we move on into Robin's topic, we're going to take a quick commercial break, which does start with us telling you about Manscaped. Right now, if you go to manscaped.com, anything that you find, when you go to checkout, if you use the code Scaryish, all caps, you'll get 20% off your order plus free shipping. Christmas is bearing down on us, y'all. And if you don't want to buy something for yourself, which honestly, they have some good stuff, you can always buy something for someone in your life. Just saying.
I mean, Christmas is coming up, so it's the perfect time to buy a gift.
I think one of the most popular products they have is called the Lawnmower 3.0. It is a trimmer for sensitive skin, and it works wonderfully, as anyone who has watched some of the more recent episodes of Storytime has seen, as Robin took hacks out of my beard for funsies.
One of the most important aspects of it is that it's wireless. I was going to say Wi-Fi.
It has Wi-Fi? No.
No.
It is wireless, has a lithium-ion battery built in, so it charges and it's good to go for a while. It has literally been in my desk for about a month, and it still has a full charge, and that's pretty impressive. So yeah, go check their stuff out. They have plenty of stuff. And again, if you go to checkout with any products that you have in your cart, 20% off and free shipping by using the code Scaryish, all caps. So shout out to Manscaped. Go check it out, manscaped.com. And now we're going to move on into our regular commercial break.
Welcome to the other side of the ad break, also known as the other side of the episode. Okay.
Sup?
This week, I'm going in a true crime direction. I think it's been a minute. I've been trying to steer away from true crime because I did so many in a row for a while there. Anyone who has a close relationship with their sibling might relate to this topic a little bit. Probably not because it has murder. But I'm covering the murderous Papin sisters.
Interesting.
Have you heard of them before?
I've never heard of them.
This week, our crime takes place in Le Mans, France, in the year 1933. Yes, the home of the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
I was about to ask. That sounds interesting.
I think we watch Ford versus Ferrari, all the time.
We watch it like once every week and a half to 2 weeks at this point. It's an excellent movie.
It's a really good movie. So when I saw that, I was just like, oh my God, Le Mans. Okay. So 1933. It's a pretty hot year. Not temperature-wise, but it's definitely a year on the brink of a lot of history. A lot of history.
Robin quizzed me, do you know what happened in 1933? And I gave some answers, and she went, I'm so turned on right now.
I was so surprised, because he's like, this happened, and this happened, and this happened. Alright, so, 1933. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, sworn in as the 32nd president. Hitler gave his proclamation to the German people, that big speech he made about how he was going to make everything great because our leadership was shitty and all that stuff, to the German people, right? Then Nazis staged their big, huge book burning event.
God, like they burned books, for Christ's sake. Like, how much more of a sign did you need that they were bad guys when, like, knowledge, set it on fire and only trust us. Like, red fucking flag, people.
The original King Kong film premiered in New York.
Oh, shit. I did not know that.
Prohibition gets repealed in America and alcohol becomes legal. The first NFL championship game is played in 1933.
Did the Bears win it?
I don't think so. I don't know, actually. I didn't check the score, babe.
I did not check it.
Anyway, those are just a few of the things that happened that year. It's a pretty big year in history. All that happened as well as this particular murder in France. So, these sisters are Christine and Leah Papin, and they're born in Le Mans, France, to Clemence and Gustave Papin. And as with many stories of murder, their family life wasn't necessarily the best. And it's unfortunate. A lot of the murderers that I cover, it's like their childhood kind of blows. It's rumored that their parents had a pretty rough relationship going into them having kids. The beginning of their relationship just didn't start on a strong foundation. And
so you're telling me kids didn't fix the relationship? That never happens.
It's thought that Gustave actually married their mother because she got pregnant in October of 1901. And then their first child, Amelia, is born 5 months later. So she was pregnant, they get married, they have their kid. Gustave had a suspicion that his wife was having an affair, so he decides to find a job in another city and makes the decision that the entire family would move there. She then declares that she would rather commit suicide than move away from Le Mans. That's how, I don't know, people say that's because she just was having an affair and she didn't want to leave, Or
maybe she just hated him.
But maybe she just didn't want to go. Exactly. Maybe she was just like, I hate you. I just don't want to go with you.
It's like, so you're telling me I'm going to uproot my life and start over, and the only thing that'll be familiar is I'm with the person I can't fucking stand. Yeah, I could see that.
This led to a deterioration in their marriage and Gustave drinking heavily. The breeding ground for a fun childhood, I am sure. Like, that's just all of that bad juice mixed in there. I don't know if juice is the right word. It's bad. Anyway, Christine was born March 8th, 1905, and was unsurprisingly given over to her paternal aunt and uncle soon after she was born. Her mother was dealing with depression. Her father was at this point where he's like super, super alcoholic and just abusive and all around shitty. With her aunt and uncle, she was able to stay with them for 7 years, living a fairly happy childhood. So she got a few years of something normal and nice. Leia was born on September 15th, 1911. She's their last kid that they have together. And she's given to her maternal uncle, who she stays with until he dies, which isn't very long. It's pretty crazy that even though they have the parents have these issues and they're fighting constantly and it's just this unhappy situation, they still keep popping out kids, you know? So they have 3 kids at this point. In 1912, when Amelia, the eldest, was 9 or 10, it was alleged that Gustave had raped her.
Wow.
So her mother sends her to Bon Pasteur Catholic Orphanage. So she sends her daughter off to an orphanage. And soon after her arrival, Christine and Leia join her at this orphanage. So now all her kids are at this orphanage. Their mother intends for them to just stay at this orphanage until they reach the age of 15, when they're old enough to go get jobs and start working. And she really showed little affection for her husband or her children. She was just this separated person.
I can understand the husband. It makes me sad about the children, but I imagine, like, if she despises him so much, anything in the kids that reminds her of her husband, she probably despises.
I could see that.
It's rough. I can't imagine going through a childhood like that.
I don't know if things work differently over in France, though, or if it's just like a difference in the times, but I didn't think that you could just be like, hey, yeah, take my kids until they're ready to get work. I'm good. You just hold on to those things for me. You know, I've just never heard of that before, where you could just leave your kids somewhere and then once
I'm
they
sure there are parents out there just daydreaming as you're describing this.
Go to France in 1933. But don't really, because I was
going to say that's not the best place to be.
All right. So in 1918, Amelia, the eldest, decides to join a convent, and from what anyone can ascertain, she lives her life out there. And she has really nothing else to do with the rest of the family for the rest of her life. While Christine was at the orphanage, she too felt the call to join and become a nun. But her mother was like, nah, dog, I forbid it. Go get a job. So what happens is she puts her to work, gets her a job. Christine is described as a good cook. She's a hard worker, but that she's pretty insubordinate sometimes. And I hope they didn't put that on her resume. Just saying, that's not good.
I mean, you build your own resume. No one lists down skills like, I'm good with Microsoft Office, I know Workday really well, and I'm insubordinate.
Leia, on the other hand, was described as being really quiet. She was the shy one. She was really introverted, but she was obedient and considered to be, quote unquote, less intelligent, which, you know, that's messed up, but they're comparing her to her older sister. So it's just like, she's just way more shy and she just does what she's told. And I don't think that's her fault. That doesn't make her any less intelligent. It's just something she just goes by what everybody else tells her, you know?
There's a lot of weird dynamics when it comes to siblings. I feel like in this case, this dynamic is like, there's the good one who became the nun. There's the screw up who's the insubordinate one. And then there's the dumb one, quote unquote, where it's like, you're not as intelligent as your sister. And because you get those labels slapped on you, you like will always resent your label and then their label too.
Except these two don't resent each other. So they both end up working as maids throughout Le Mans in various different homes. They try to work together whenever they can. And in 1926, they're able to find just that, living positions together as maids at 6 Rue Bruyere for the Lancelin family. I don't speak French. That's going to be butchered as fuck.
I thought it sounded okay, actually.
Thanks. So it was Renee Lancelin, a retired solicitor, his wife, Leonie, and their youngest daughter, Genevieve. And these three lived in their home. There was another daughter, but she was old enough where she had moved out, gotten married. She was on her own already. The girls had worked in what seemed to be a pretty nice situation for years. So they were working with these people. They had this job, they were well fed, they had clothes, they were housed because they lived with them in this pretty nice house. They got paid too. So it's a pretty good situation to be in. They preferred the company of each other rather than others. So during their 2 breaks each day after lunch, they would just go to their bedroom and hang out in their bedroom instead of going out and seeing things out in the day. You know what I mean? Apparently during the time that the sisters were employed there, Renee had never really spoken to either woman. So this guy who's the head of the household's just like, you guys deal with that. I'm good. So he doesn't really speak to these maids at all. And according to him, because they did their work so well, they didn't feel that they needed to acknowledge them at all. They're like, they do their work pretty well. Let's just leave them to it. There's no need for me to criticize, whatever. And the wife was the one that kind of dealt with everything. And apparently what she did was she would do the white glove test that you said your dad used to do. She would do that. And then she would leave notes and she would yell at them and she would just be
that
this
note
mean
thing rings.
person.
Oh my God. The
So-
white glove thing and the note thing is just like fucking triggering childhood PTSD.
So a number of things definitely escalated tensions within the home. Leonie kind of developed depression and supposedly just started taking out her being upset on these sisters. And it got so bad, the abuse got so bad to the point that she would literally slam their heads into the wall in anger. She was just this really rough, angry person. As the sisters kind of grew up in this unstable situation with unstable parental figures and bad things kind of happened to them, they were pretty unpredictable, you know? It's like, you're triggering me. The worse you get, it's more triggering. So on the evening of Thursday, February 2nd, 1933, Renee was supposed to meet his family for dinner at a friend's house, and they never arrived. So his wife and daughter had been out shopping, and upon their return after their outing, they came home to a dark house. All the lights were off. And the sisters explained that there had been a power outage because Christine had plugged in a faulty iron. And instead of being super understanding, like, oh, shit happens, Leonie kind of freaks out and starts attacking them. And it's just so funny that this blackout would be in this story that I'm telling you guys today, because my sister literally called me earlier tonight and she's like, did your guys' lights go out? And I'm like, no, I'm good. And she's like, well, our lights are out. I was just mind blown that while I was doing this research and stuff like that, that there would be a blackout too. I just thought it was
Did
pretty
you ask her,
coincidental.
like, did you plug in a faulty iron?
I should have. Damn it. Yeah, she lives across the main road. There's like one road. She lives across it. I don't know how our lights didn't go out. It's crazy. Anyway, so what's different about these two blackouts is that my sister didn't get attacked and these two did. So these two sisters, kind of got into a fight with Leonie, and what is described to have happened is Leonie got upset, she got angry, and then attacked the sisters on the first floor landing. But who was even more upset was Christine. Trigger warning, so if you guys want to skip forward for a minute or two, you go ahead and do that. So Christine had all this pent-up rage and then went and started attacking Genevieve, and then attacked Genevieve and gouged her eyes out.
Oh my God.
And so she gouged her eyes out. Leia then joined in the struggle and at the order of Christine, gouged Leonie's eyes out. And so Christine proceeded to go down to the kitchen where she grabbed a knife and a hammer.
Holy shit.
It's seemingly slightly overkill, but okay. She took them back upstairs where they continued to attack these two women. According to experts who responded to the scene, the attack lasted between 30 minutes to 2 hours. And at some point, one of the sisters even grabbed a heavy pewter pitcher and struck them both in the head. It's just, these women just snapped, you know, because I think they were around 27. They're almost to their 30s. But they just snapped and brutalized these people. It was a brutal attack. There are actually pictures of the crime scene out there on the internet that we will not be posting because they're just absolutely awful.
I heard her looking at them and she's like, this is awful. This is horrific. And I was just like, that does not blend with our Instagram/Facebook style. Let's leave those out.
So when Rene returned to a dark home, he assumed that his family had left for that dinner already. So instead of, looking around, he decided, I'll just head over there since they're already headed over there.
Huh, there's 4 eyeballs on the floor. I'm sure the maids will clean those.
So he goes over there and his family's not there. So then he goes back and returns home, this time with his son-in-law. And so they get there around 6:30 to 7 p.m. and the house is entirely dark from the outside. They can see the house is entirely dark except for the light on in the Papin sisters' room. So the front door bolted from the inside, so they can't get in. They end up going to the police station to try and get help because shit's not adding up here. Why is our door bolted from the inside? Apparently they don't have keyholes or something like we have now, where if he had just taken his house, he could have just unlocked it,
I imagine they have deadlocks similar to like the chain on the door in like a hotel,
gotcha.
except it's just like a deadlock that you can't open from the outside.
Okay. So with an officer in tow, they return to the home, and the officer climbs the garden wall to gain entry into the home, where he comes across this pretty gruesome sight. He found the bodies of the 2 Lancelin women, bludgeoned and stabbed to death to the point where they were absolutely unrecognizable. They had their eyes gouged out, obviously. Leonie had her eyes found in the folds of her scarf around her neck, and Genevieve had one eye under her, and then one eye on nearby stairs. That's how brutal this attack was. Police initially thought that the sisters had suffered the same fate, and so they continued to search for the sisters to see if they were okay. And they continued up the stairs to their room, only to find that their room was locked. And the officer knocked, no one answered, so instead of kicking down the door, because apparently they don't do that, they got the locksmith to come in and unlock the door. I don't know how long that must have taken them to get a locksmith to come in and unlock the door, but they did. And within the room, they found the sisters in bed, naked together. Some reports say they were in robes, some say they're naked. It just depends on the source that you're reading. In a nearby chair lay a bloody hammer with hair still clinging to it.
Wow.
Gross. The sisters immediately, when they were questioning them, they immediately confessed to having killed them. A statement from Christine says, quote, "Seeing that Mrs. Lancelin was going to throw herself on me, I jumped on her face and tore her eyes off with my fingers. During this time, my sister Leah jumped on Mrs. Lancelin and also tore off her eyes. When we did that, they laid down or squatted on the spot. Then I rushed down to the kitchen and went to get a hammer and a kitchen knife," end quote. It's like she kind of knew what she was going to do, It seems somewhat premeditated because she was like, I'm going to go grab a hammer and a knife. I know exactly where they are, It's creepy. She definitely had a lot of rage, obviously. The sisters were immediately separated and placed in prison. Christine, the older of the 2, was incredibly distressed, having been taken away from her sister. Apparently, at one point, they were finally allowed to see each other. And at that point, Christine immediately threw herself at Leah, unbuttoning her blouse and begging her, please say yes, which this apparently gave the impression that they had an incestuous relationship or something like that. They were found in bed naked or robed together or whatever. So people kind of assumed that there was some hinky stuff going on between them. In July of 1933, Christine had a quote-unquote episode in which she tried to gouge her own eyes out with her bare hands, which resulted in her getting put in a straitjacket. A statement made to the investigating magistrate had her claiming that she had had a similar episode the day of the murders, and that's the reason why whatever happened. Who knows, who really can say whether or not that's true? After 3 court-appointed doctors evaluated the sisters, they concluded that neither had any pathological mental disorders. So they couldn't say for sure that, there is something wrong with her, and that's why she has these episodes. They were deemed sane and fit to stand trial. The psychologist also concluded that their relationship was strictly based on affection as a sister. There was no incestuous connotation whatsoever. But if anything, many believe that their actions were a rebellion against the upper class. Like, the reason why they did it was that their crime was kind of a reflection of class divisions, poor working conditions, prejudice against, the lower class. And so they were just kind of like, fuck you, rebel. That's what people were thinking was the reason behind why these two maids decided to kill their employers,
I will say, I can't really speak to the dynamics of 1933, proletariat versus bourgeoisie war or whatever was happening. But I think when you have an abusive employer, at some point the person's going to fight back. I would definitely say gouging out eyes and murdering someone is a overreaction, but at some point there was going to be a reaction. Reading into the entire thing, this was about class war. It's no, this is about being attacked and someone being you fucked around, you found out. Just saying, got very, very vicious very quickly.
Right. Though there were some in the public who may have supported the sisters' actions, courts obviously aren't so keen on people killing other people. So in September of 1933, there was a medical testimony that there was actual mental illness within their family. Their uncle had committed suicide, and their cousin was currently, at the time, living in an asylum. So there was evidence of something, but only a couple people, only the uncle having committed suicide. I don't necessarily think people committing suicide have any mental illnesses necessarily.
It's 1933.
So,
they're just willing to slap on a label of mental illness
right.
for anything that just seemed not normal at the time.
So I'm going to say I'm not going to count that whatsoever. The cousin living in the asylum, though, too, back then, they shoved anybody and everybody in asylums. So I don't necessarily believe that that is a sign of mental illness in their family as well. It's something where it's 1933. Shit was crazy back then. I don't think that those count, but that's what they said in the reports back in the day. They were this is a sign of mental illness in their family, whatever. So the interesting thing about this case is that they really debated and struggled over the diagnosis of these sisters. And I can totally see that, because what are they going to do? These two sisters, they seem pretty weird together, killed these two people. What are we going to call it? What are we going to say? What's the reason why they did it, After deliberation and a lot of talk and a lot of consideration, it was determined that the sisters suffered from what they called, quote unquote, shared paranoid disorder. So shared paranoid disorder, or folie à deux, is a shared psychosis or delusional disorder said to occur when pairs or groups of people are isolated and kind of develop a paranoia in which one kind of dominates over the other or the rest of them. It's just they start taking over for the other person, pretty much. But that's a whole other topic entirely. I really want to do a folie à deux episode because there's so many different things.
And we've bumped up against folie à deux in the past.
Yes, we have. So once the trial's over, the jury takes a whole 40 minutes to come back with the verdict of guilty for both of them. That is quick.
That's super quick.
Leia, thought to have been an accomplice and influenced by her older sister and only acting on her orders, was sentenced to 10 years, where Christine, though initially sentenced to death by guillotine, had her sentence changed to life imprisonment later on. I cannot believe
they're still killing people with
guillotines. They were killing people with guillotines. What?
I wonder when they
That's
stopped.
1933.
I sincerely wonder when they stopped killing people with guillotines
Oh
in France.
my gosh.
Or guillotines. Please don't correct my pronunciation on that. I don't care. Don't at me.
It doesn't matter. Whatever. So once the two were separated, Christine immediately deteriorated, experiencing depression and quote unquote madness episodes. She eventually just refused to eat. Though authorities transferred her to a mental institution in hopes of recovery, she still continued to starve until her death on May 18th, 1937. So she really doesn't live that much longer after everything goes down.
Right. So just to interrupt really quickly, I totally looked this up really fast, and France executed people via guillotine up until September of 1981.
Shut the front door!
So basically they
Shut the front door.
stopped executing people, and 30 days later my brother was born. That's how recently they had been executing people via guillotine. So kind of fucking nuts if you think about it.
Oh my god! Wow. Okay. Wow. All right. Interesting. Knowledge nugs. Okay. Leia, on the other hand, fared much better. She only served 8 out of her 10 years. She was released in 1941 and lived in the town of Nantes, where she was joined by her mother, which is so surprising to me. So her parents did get divorced. Their parents got divorced, and apparently she ends up hanging out with her mom after the fact. I find that so interesting.
I wonder if they requested the mom be her custodian when she was released or something like that.
That makes sense, actually. She changes her name and ends up making a living as a hotel maid. Some say Leia died in 1982, but a French film producer named Claude Ventura discovered a woman he believed to be Leia, living in a hospice center in France in 2000 while working on a film titled In Search of the Papin Sisters. In French, of course. It's not in English. It's the title's in French. I was not going to try to pronounce that. This woman suffered a stroke that had her partially paralyzed and unable to speak. She actually died in 2001, but whether or not she was actually Leia, it's hard to tell because she couldn't say.
Right.
So, interesting.
That is batshit crazy.
Yeah. I thought it's just this really insane incident, just intense incident that kind of is what Le Mans is known for other than Le Mans, you know? Did you know Ford versus Ferrari isn't called Ford versus Ferrari
like
over
everywhere
there?
Else? Yeah. What is it called? Le Mans?
It's like 69 Le Mans. I think that's what it's called. But yeah, so that is the story of the Papin sisters.
That is super interesting. Very well researched. I'm very happy we were able to find out the guillotine fact as well. It's kind of crazy to think that I feel like nowadays you can always track down someone's origin and eventually someone's end, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy to think that, you know, up until recently, that was not always the case. You could lose track of a human being that is so very famous apparently in that region for something so brutal.
I mean, people go into witness protection.
I mean, that's not what this is, though. It's not like they had a government entity helping them disappear. She simply changed her name, and then no one ever found her. They were able to find out, like, she lived as a hotel maid, but, like, we don't even know when she died or who she was when she died, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit bizarre, but at the same time, it's also super brutal. So.
I mean, you know what else is brutal? That France didn't stop using the guillotine until 1982, 1983?
81.
Oh, fuck.
September 1981. I was thinking through in my head, like, what things were going on when they were still, like, cutting people's heads off? And just, like, 1980. Anything in 1980, it would have been like, yep, if you're in France, you fuck around, you lose your head. So, and obviously anytime in the 70s or the 60s. But, yeah, that was really good. Thank you for sharing that one. I'm really glad you picked it because I had never heard of it, and now I'll never forget it. So,
nice.
Good work.
Thanks.
So I think that's just about everything we have for episode 153, I think this one is. If you have a story, it doesn't have to be guillotine or haunted house related, but that you would like to share with us, please do. You can email storytime@scaryish.com. That is our email address. Or go to our website, scaryish.com, and click on Contact Us. That form comes directly to us. Or hit us up on any of our social medias. Facebook is facebook.com/scarishpodcast. Twitter is @scarishpod, and Instagram is @scarishpodcast. We always like to hear from you, even as feedback on an episode, topic suggestions, just letting us know that you started listening. We had someone reach out and say, my son introduced me to this podcast. We both love it. It's kind of a bonding moment for us. So you have two fans in Maine. It was super cool to read it.
That is cute.
It wasn't necessarily for the story time, but it was just this really awesome email we got. Or if you have a story that you do want to share with us, please send it our way. Robin, for folks who would like to donate to us, how can they do so?
You can go to patreon.com/scaryish-podcast. We've been actually picking up a couple new patrons. You folks are awesome. I am still mailing out this season's rewards. So right now, the season's reward is the Wendigo stuff. So I have a Wendigo acrylic charm and I have a Wendigo holographic sticker. So cute. And those are the rewards for the physical tiers. So Badge of Honor tiers and above are getting those right now. So if you folks want to head on over there. Also, if you go $1 and above, you get ad-free episodes, which are absolutely great, other than the ones read by Adam's voice. But,
ouch, fuck you.
You can also go to Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/Scaryish podcast. And those are one-time donations. All your donations go to helping us upgrade our studio setup. We were able to actually get a new microphone. I hope you folks notice how much better things sound now because our microphones match. And this is the first episode, right? With
no, technically story time. The previous story time that we just did was the first episode.
Gotcha. Hopefully you guys notice. And we really couldn't do it without you folks. All this stuff to kind of keep the podcast going and make it better, always making it better, is thanks to you.
Indeed. So thank you so much to everyone who supports us, listens, watches, sends us emails, or even ghost listens. We've never heard your name. You've never commented or mentioned anything in any of our social medias.
Just thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for listening. I mean, we don't joke around when we say it means the world to us because it really, really does. We have not missed an episode. We've not missed a release window in almost 3 years. In 3 weeks, I think we're at 3 years. And that's because of the support we've received. And every time we're tired or we don't feel good or something bad has happened in our lives, we're like, we need to have an episode out there for these people that depend on it and really want it to be there. And it's because we feel that support from you. So thank you so much. We love you guys. You're all amazing. And that is everything we have for this episode. So Robin, go ahead and sign us out.
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye-bye.
Don't be sus.